Damn.
What would you like to say to the politicians who, following the referendum result, have suggested that the UK may not actually have to leave the European Union?
I would say it's the biggest democratic mandate of anything in the UK history. It got 17.4 million votes, and if you really want to be democratic, which I hope the people in that parliament there are, then you would support invoking Article 50 now and making sure that we carry out the will of the British people, because that is what they're there to do. We live in a democracy, I hope, and when people vote, it was the first time that all these people came out and voted who've never voted before. People haven't voted for 20 years. These people deserve a voice in our democracy and in our country, and they shouldn't be ignored.
I'd like to say screw them. 52% of the British voting population asked to leave the EU on the 23rd of June. To undermine that or to try and overrule that is wrong, and that's why we're here today. We're here to tell them that a second referendum, a vote through Parliament, any of these processes that they want to do, they're wrong because the British people have asked to leave, and that's what they should do, and they should invoke Article 50 now.
Well, I think that's extremely anti-democratic to suggest that we won't leave the EU when 17.4 million people voted to leave the EU. That's actually the biggest mandate in British political history. I think if you're an MP and you believe in democracy, then it's absolutely absurd to suggest that we wouldn't follow through on Brexit, and I would question very much whether those politicians actually believe in democracy at all.
Well, I think it's pretty clear what we think of what they're doing. Any attempt to subvert the Brexit vote shows an insidious disregard for the value of democracy. 17.4 million people voted for Brexit, representing the largest democratic mandate in political history. And to be honest, any attempt to stop that from happening is a blatant disregard. It's extremely worrying towards democracy, and which is why we're out here outside Parliament protesting any attempt to do that.
I think I would just encourage them to respect the democratic mandate that's been in place before them. The Brexit vote, the 17.4 million people who voted to leave the European Union, is the biggest mandate in British political history, full stop. More people voted for that in Britain than have ever voted for anything else ever before. And I think they need to recognise the seriousness of what they're doing, this kind of scheming, this kind of plotting. This would destroy democracy for a generation. It would cease to have any meaning if they scuppered it. So I think it's time for the elite to recognise that they have been given a black eye, they have been given a vote of no confidence, they have been told we want to go another way, and they need to respect that, but more so I think we as the public need to put pressure on them. We need to say this is our collective will, it needs to be enacted, and let's get on with it. So yeah, I think they need to recognise just how deeply anti-democratic what it is they're doing.
March for Europe have said that in the absence of what they see as a credible plan going forward, the UK government should postpone the triggering of Article 50 and by extension Brexit. What do you think of that?
I think they are willfully ignoring the will of certain people in our society, calling them too stupid to vote. People who don't have a degree, they shouldn't vote, they say. People who aren't educated, they didn't know what they were voting for. And I think it was one of the most... People were so impassioned about this vote. People definitely knew what they were voting for. And for Remainers to say that people were lied to, there was lying on both sides, I would say that, but people aren't stupid. People who, even if they don't have a degree, they're able to vote and they should be able to vote and they should have their voices heard, and you shouldn't ignore them.
Well, I think the referendum was a very simple political question. It wasn't how do you see the terms of Brexit, how should we leave the European Union? It was, would you like to remain or leave the European Union? And we voted on that, and we voted to leave. It wasn't voting on just like a set of political ideas or a roadmap for leaving. That's not what it was about. It was about membership of the EU. So the priority right now has to be leaving the EU. It was a democratic vote and it needs to be upheld.
I think it's a load of bonkers, really. I think it's a load of rubbish because, first of all, you've got to bear in mind that once we trigger Article 50, that doesn't remove us from the European Union straight away. It gives us 2 years to negotiate trade deals, which I think, looking at the interest from Australia, from Canada, etc., shows that we can be economically prosperous outside of the European Union. And to be honest, any attempt to say that, right, we need to kind of gather our things, we need to lick our wounds first and have a little chat about what we're going to do, shows how risk averse the Remainers are. Yes, fair enough, we don't know 100% what's going to happen once we leave the European Union, but this leap in the dark is quite exciting, to be honest. This is a fantastic opportunity to rebuild and create tolerant policies towards migration, to become a truly internationalist nation and one that is also truly democratic. So to them I say, get on board, this is democracy in action.
Well, I think that a lot of these arguments which are presented as kind of tactical arguments, we'll get a better deal or have a clearer sense of what we're doing, it's just smoke and mirrors. It's an attempt to put it off in the hopes that it won't happen. First of all, groups like March for Europe have actively said they want to block it from happening altogether. So the idea that they're just presenting a nice bit of tactical advice, I find deeply ludicrous. And I also think that the whole point of Brexit is that we don't have a roadmap. It was a shaking up of the status quo. It was a shuffling of the deck. It was saying that we don't want things to continue on as they are. It was a vote against the status quo. The thing that we all as Democrats now have to face is that we have to work out what that means. But the first step for that is leaving the European Union. People say they don't know what Brexit means, they don't know what the plan is. I think, speaking as a Leave voter, it's quite clear. Get us out of the European Union as soon as possible, and then we can all, as a society, engage with how we think society should move forward. There is no roadmap, but that's what's most exciting about it.
Do you believe our Prime Minister when she says Brexit means Brexit?
It's so hard to tell at this moment in time because Theresa May, she's a new Prime Minister, she's got big expectations to manage. She's been saying the right things, whatever that means, about Brexit. I do believe her that she'll deliver Brexit, but it's to what extent does she deliver Brexit? I mean, she's been saying recently that she won't have a points-based immigration system. Millions of people voted for that. Millions of people voted UKIP who wanted that. And Boris Johnson and Michael Gove both said that we should have a points-based system. So for her to go back on that would be anti-democratic.
No, because if Brexit meant Brexit, it would have happened, 73 days ago, are we talking now? The problem with when they say Brexit means Brexit is people put faith in the establishment. They trust the establishment that they're going to go through the job, but that isn't the case. We need things like this to push our politicians to carry through with the mandate. Otherwise, it won't happen. And there is a real threat that we could just get a very watered-down Brexit, and that's not what people voted for.
I have my doubts, to be honest. I would like to believe that Theresa May means it when she says Brexit, it means Brexit. But there's been a lot of reports that it's not going to happen until 2019. It's already been over 2 months since we had the referendum vote, and nothing's really happened. And it's really very disappointing. This was a really important moment in our political history. A lot of people turned out to vote in this referendum. It was a higher turnout than we had for general elections. People really engaged with this issue, and so I think it should be her priority, but I'm actually not sure it is, and I'm worried that it won't happen.
Well, I think the fact that she herself was a Remain voter is slightly worrying, and the fact that she says Brexit means Brexit but still failed to trigger Article 50. I think it shows that she's clearly pandering to the whims of these Remainers and these second referendumers who want to stop this referendum from happening. And from our perspective at Invoke Article 50 now, any attempt to delay the invocation of Article 50 poses another threat to the referendum result.
I don't trust her as far as I can throw her. And this is not because I'm cynical, and this is not because I have this idea that she's trying to hatch some sort of conspiracy to stop Brexit from happening. I think it's something a little sadder than that. I think she, as a representative of our kind of mainstream political establishment, is deeply cowardly, deeply risk-averse, doesn't want to take responsibility for what was a real radical break. She's typically conservative in that sense. And so I think her reflex is to kick the can down the road, is to put it off, is to try and flatten things out a little bit. And I think the problem with that is the longer you do that, there's a very good chance Brexit won't happen at all. Because as we've seen in the last few weeks, there are people out there who are real anti-democrats who really don't want this to happen. The lawyers who launched the legal challenge against Article 50, the House of Lords which is talking about blocking it entirely, as well as various MPs who have actively said they want to stop this madness from happening. So my problem with Theresa May is she may say Brexit means Brexit and that we should just trust her to get on with it. But the problem is her dithering just opens up the field for these real anti-democrats to move in. So I think if she's to do anything, is to invoke Article 50. That's what we were told would happen. Uphold the vote and then get on with it.
We are here today in defence of democracy, of self-determination, popular sovereignty, the idea that politics and power resides with us, the people, not with the elite. That is the reason why Britain voted to leave the European Union, and it's the reason that all of us are here today. Yes. But over the last few weeks, it's been made abundantly clear that anti-democrats are not unique to Brussels. In the past few weeks, the British elite has been doing everything it can to scupper the Brexit vote. And today, as we're here, MPs are debating whether to have a second EU referendum. Our answer to that question is what? No! What?
From the trade unions against the European Union. We've been going for a number of years. Our leader used to be Bob Crow, and if Bob Crow was alive, he'd be standing right here. And be proud of every single one of you. What we were asked 2 months ago, remember how it felt when we woke up on June 24th? Remember that day? That is when the democratic revolt started. And it's not going to end here, and it's not going to end anytime soon, because that vote was the biggest bitch slap the British establishment has had in living memory. But what they didn't account for is the British view of reality as it actually is. What they were asking, do you support a monstrous, corrupt, forensically neoliberal empire against democracy? And you know what? When people had the choice, they said, we'll have democracy any day. I'll tell you what, whatever they do now, whatever they try and do, we are the 52%. And I'll tell you what, it's not just this country. On June 24th, 500 million people across the European Union saw that and they said, we'll have some of that. We'll have Brexit, we'll have Nexit, we'll have Frenzit, we'll have Irish exit. We'll have it all, because we can. Because we can have self-government, or you can be ruled from abroad. Okay? You can believe in continued membership of the European Union, or you can believe in democracy. You can't believe in both.
Throughout history, from the Chartists through to the suffragettes, every attempt to expand democracy, to allow the public to impress themselves on politics, to intrude on history, has been met with the same argument. They would say we're too uneducated, we're too fickle, ultimately we're too dumb to take part in politics. That sentiment is as alive and well today as it was then.
Yeah.
Because when they say that we need a second EU referendum, when they say that we were misled, we were hoodwinked, we were tricked, when they say that we should be asked to vote again, what they're saying is we should have never been asked to vote in the first place.
Yeah.
What do we want? Brexit! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Brexit! And when do we want it? Now! Set, 1, 2, 3, this is a democracy! 5, 6, 7, 8, respect the people's mandate! What do we want?